You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And we are back again. Gavin is without notes today.
I have no notes today.
So this must be a story that you know pretty intimately.
No, it's because it's no story at all.
It's not a story at all. What does that mean?
Nope. So, I think I said at the end of the last episode that the next thing we were going to do was a Menominee story that involved execution. Like,
I don't think you said anything about execution, but you talked about a Menominee story, yes.
Well, a Menominee story, it involves the death penalty in Wisconsin.
Okay, you did talk about that a little bit, about how you can get the federal death penalty.
Correct.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that was going to be this, and it could have been this. It's written. I could have done it. But instead, I thought this would be a good time to do something a little bit different.
Okay.
Because I wanted to make an announcement for people.
Oh, okay.
And
well, let's hear this announcement.
Yeah, because Eric doesn't even know.
No.
So for the last year or so, I was tasked with putting together a history of the Kaukauna Police Department.
Yes, I do recall that.
Okay, well, I'm pleased to say I am down to the end of that project.
Ooh.
So, as of this recording, this is the end of December 2025 as we record this. But I am down to the end. I suspect I will finally have it wrapped up within a month. So I don't know when people will hear this, but by the time you hear this, it should be at the very end. And it'll be quick coming out after that. It is coming out in book form. It's not going through a traditional publisher because, like, that's a really hard book to pitch to a traditional publisher. So I don't know whether I'll be doing it through Amazon or otherwise. We have a local printer that we've worked with in the past.
Okay.
They're called, like, Digicopy, I think is their name.
I've heard of Digicopy, so
yeah, and they've printed things up for us in book form before, so we might go that route. But either way, once the formatting is done, like, it's done. There's no waiting period for publishing and all that. It'll be like weeks later, once the publisher is ready to just print them off, they'll print them off. So,
so are you thinking?
So it's coming.
Is there going to be a place that is going to sell this book, or is it more or less like probably just get it from the library?
Well, that's the thing. So if I go through the place that the library uses, the main place you will get them is at the Kaukauna Public Library. Now, we probably sell them other places as well. Like, there's also a fire department book, which I did not do, but the fire department book is also available at other places around town.
Okay.
And I imagine it would be similar to that, where we would have it. Certain restaurants might want to carry copies, or the grocery store might want to carry copies. It's very Kaukauna specific. So for all the listeners here who are like, man, all the Kaukauna stuff all the time, I don't care about that. Well, you might not care about this, but I do think it's of interest to people beyond Kaukauna. I will say that. There's a lot of stuff in it that's like Kaukauna police officer biographies that probably most people will not care about. But there's also just a lot of stuff about the development of law enforcement over the last 140 years or so. And there's some interesting things in there, like how hard it was for them to get squad cars. Like, up at least in Kaukauna, up through the 1930s, like, they never had squad cars.
So how did they get around? Just horses or something?
They walked or they used their personal vehicles.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The city would not pay for them to have cars. So, like, it's really weird, like, all these things that they were really slow to develop. The schooling, like today, you know, you have to go and get your like police science degree. And sometimes you go on and do more schooling after that. But at least up through like the 1950s, they just pulled these guys out of the mill.
And then and kind of trained them on the job, basically.
Yeah, they're like, oh, you want to work for the police department? Yeah, sure. All right, you're on the police department.
I mean,
it's like not even 2 weeks later, you're out there doing all the police stuff.
That really doesn't surprise me that much.
No, I don't think that it's surprising, but it's really weird to comparing 1950 to today, and just how not unprofessional is the wrong word. Like they were professionals, but
simple.
But yeah, just
the simplicity of everything.
Now, like every single thing that the police do is so fine-tuned and so trained and everything. And that is just not the history of how the department worked. So it's interesting to see that today, the super well-trained, all the gear, all that stuff, that's a relatively new development.
So tell me some of your favorite things that you learned about doing this. Like what are some of the high points of this book that would make somebody want to read it, I guess?
It's hard to say. I mean, I like a lot of it. There are a lot of stories, personal stories in it. So if you do care about the individuals, that's interesting, because I made a point of it that I did not want the biographies to just be like, this is their job. Mm-hmm. I wanted them to be people.
Okay.
So there's stories about officers going fishing with their buddies. There's stories about trips to Ireland. One guy was I don't know what his title was, but wasn't valedictorian, but he was somebody good in his high school class. So he gave a speech to the high school class. I put that whole speech in there.
Well, that's cool.
It has no relevance whatsoever to the police department, but I thought this is going to give you a real sense of who this guy is when it's him, 18 years old, reflecting on life. So I love that this is going to make these people full-fledged people and not just, guys in uniform. And I love the development of all kinds of things. One thing that I got really stuck on was dogs. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean police dogs. Like, it's every month they had to file a report that was printed up in the newspaper about how many stray dogs they killed.
Okay.
And, it's a lot. It's a lot. It sounds like for decades, like a big part of the police's job was just going around and shooting stray dogs.
Well, that sounds terrible to me, but okay.
But it's just so weird that this is like a thing. Each month there'd be an article that says 7 dogs killed this month. And it'd be like, okay, I'm glad to know. And maybe you have an answer. Cats too, but mostly dogs.
Maybe you have an answer to this, but currently our animal rescues and stuff, if they want to have dogs to be able to adopt to people, they have to go down south and get them because we have such a shortage of dogs in the Midwest. I
know nothing about that.
Okay. But how do we go from having the police's primary purpose is killing stray dogs to not having enough stray dogs?
I wouldn't say their primary purpose, but I don't know. But it is weird because at some point that switches, and in the 1980s, there ends up being an officer who gets, I think, fired. He's at least suspended, but I'm pretty sure he ends up getting fired for disposing of a dog. He shoots and disposes of the dog improperly, and then they have this whole big hearing on the proper procedure of how they're supposed to handle dogs. So by the 1980s, that's really frowned upon, whereas up through the 1950s again, that's a regular thing. So at some point, it switched where it was like, oh, stray dogs, yuck, let's get rid of them, to you absolutely do not discharge your weapon
at a stray dog.
This is not a thing you do. So
that is for killing people, not animals.
No. But you'll see that there's stories like that. There's an officer who got shot, so that's in there. There's, all kinds of things. There's just about everything. Bomb scares. All kinds of stories of people calling in bomb threats, mostly to the Thilmany Mill.
Which kind of makes sense, because if you're going to blow something up in Kaukauna in the 50s or prior, what are you going to blow up besides the mill? I guess even today, what are you going to blow up? Maybe a school?
Yeah. But it was like, it's weird because they would do that and then they'd have to send the workers home, and the mill got pissed. Mm-hmm. Like, the mill started putting out rewards if they could catch the guy who was calling in these threats, because, that's one, like, calling in a threat to a school, not cool, but it doesn't really, other than scaring people, it doesn't really do anything. Calling into the mill and sending like 1,000 guys home from work, the mill does not like that.
Yeah, and I don't really know much about this, but like I think I was told back when I was a kid and my dad worked at a mill that the mills never shut down because it's so expensive to open them back up for some reason. Like I've heard shutting the machines down and turning them back on and getting them running again costs so much money that it's just way more efficient just to leave them run all the time.
Yeah, I've heard that, and I know that some mills will go down like for 2 weeks, like at the end of the year, just for maintenance and things like that. Mm-hmm. But otherwise, it's a 24/7 operation.
So that's interesting. So now that you've done this project, because when you first said you were going to do this, I kind of thought it was weird. I'm not going to lie to you.
Okay.
But did you enjoy this? Like, was there a plethora of, like, was it rich in research for you, or were you like, once you gathered all the information, you're like, wow, how am I going to turn this into a book?
There's way too much information.
Really?
That was the problem. I don't even remember when this was. So it was not my idea. I was asked to do it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay. And I thought it would come together pretty quick. I kind of thought, 6 months. And that was not accurate, because every time I would find something and then I would search for information, I would find more information, and then that information would lead to other information. And it's just now at this point, I finally reached the spot where it's decreasing faster than it's increasing. Mm-hmm. Like right now, I'm saying like this will be wrapped up in a month. I've still got 300 newspaper articles that I have to incorporate into it at this point. 300 articles. So it's not like there's not material, but I'm confident enough at this point that I'm not going to find a lot more. Mm-hmm. So, I can always come back in 10 years and make an update or something, but it's like, it just kept finding more and more and more stuff. Which makes sense, because you open up a newspaper and it would be very rare to not have a police article.
Yeah.
Like at least one police article in every newspaper.
Right.
So there's a lot of information out there. So there's that, and then trying to fill it in with other things. And I tried to keep it positive. It's a history. Like this book is not intended to be like, hey, the police department, this is the greatest police department in the country. These guys are awesome. That was not the intent. The intent was to just be neutral about it. But I actually found myself being very surprised, like pleasantly surprised with how good the department was, beginning to end. Like scandals almost non-existent. Like there's the guy who shot the dog, and there's one other guy who gets in trouble because he heard about abuse in the Boy Scouts, and he did not report it. And they don't find out that he didn't report it until, I don't know, like 15 years after the fact. And then he gets in trouble because he didn't report it at the time. But that's about it. Like, as a whole, all of the people who have gone through the police department don't really have bad marks against them. It's just a good group of guys from beginning to end. And I was, I shouldn't say I'm surprised because that sounds like I'm expecting there to be terrible things. But any group of human beings, I expect I'm going to find bad things because people are dumb. But they really, even before they had all the training and everything else, they were generally really good group of guys.
Yeah, and when you really think about it, like, it's not even that the police are dumb. It's also
not the police or people are dumb.
Well, the police officers are dumb, but it's more like, you're giving a person a heightened level of power. Mm-hmm. And for certain people, I think that just goes to their head and they do stupid stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I thought, no, I'm curious your thoughts on, do you think, for whatever reason, do you think Kaukauna has a very clean record of a police force, or do you think it's typical that a small town police force isn't really ripe with corruption?
I would say generally police are pretty good. And I think you're onto something with the small town thing, because it's not like I know this information. Like, I don't know what's normal across the thousands of police departments.
You haven't researched hundreds and hundreds of police departments to have a basis on this.
But specifically, as far as Kaukauna goes, the vast majority of the officers who worked there grew up in Kaukauna. The vast majority. So
there's a certain level of pride there.
Yeah.
Would be what you would say.
There's pride there, but there's also, like, they're very much a part of the community. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes a huge difference, because if you come in as an officer and you do see, like, hey, it's my job to keep this place safe, but also I'm awesome. Like, if you have that mentality, I could see that being a problem if you don't know the community. But, like, if you're in the community, I think that really helps keep you from having that mentality, because you know everybody. Mm-hmm. When you walk into a situation and somebody did something dumb, if you know that person prior to having to show up for the incident, I think you're going to treat it differently.
Yeah, because you're not going to treat it like, oh, this person's just a Nimrod.
Right.
Or whatever term you want to use.
Right.
So.
And so I get the impression that it's not like, hey, let's go out and, like, just arrest people and just clean this place. I mean, there's that too. They want to clean up crime. That's their job. But they have more of that sense of helping the community, and not just helping by arresting people, but helping as, like, we're part of this. These are the people that, we went to school with. Their kids go to school with our kids. Let's all be part of the same thing together. And that's a really cool attitude that I think is a small town thing. Mm-hmm. And yeah, like I said, the vast majority, there's a couple officers who have come in from out of the area. And again, not that they're bad officers, but so, like, when we were in school, liaison officer was Kevin Shepherdson. Mm-hmm. And normally I don't say names on the podcast, but I'll say Kevin Shepherdson because I like Officer Shepherdson. So I'm not going to talk smack about him. But it was always funny because he had come to Kaukauna from Kenosha. He did not grow up in Kaukauna.
Okay.
And I don't know how well you knew him, but
not at all.
Okay. But he was funny because he'd come in, and when he'd talk to kids, he tried to get information out of them about, like, who is in what gang. And everyone had to keep telling him, like, dude, we don't have gangs here. Like, that's not a thing. But because he had been an officer in Kenosha prior to coming to Kaukauna, he was of that mindset where everybody was kind of divided up into these different groups. And so it was funny. He was a really nice guy, like, really cool. Got along, at least from my perspective, got along well with with the teens, but it was funny. Like, he came into the school district thinking like, oh my gosh, who are the gangs?
Well, I'm going to take down the gangs. And then he got here and everybody's like, a gang? What's that?
Yeah. Like,
You know?
like, I mean, I'm sure there have been gangs, but it wasn't really a thing. So it was funny, like, because he had that outside mentality, he just didn't know. But that didn't make him a bad officer.
Mm. So now, is there any stories that two questions? Is there anything that came from the research in this book that surfaced new stories for Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem? One.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, do you got a story of, like, when you read it, you were just like, wow, the cops did a really amazing job with this case, or something that you can kind of share?
Okay. So on the first one, probably yes. I can't think of an example at the moment. It's entirely possible that we've actually probably done one.
Okay.
Because if I stumbled on one over the last year and a half, I probably just incorporated it into the show. Mm. But there are a number of cases that have come up that could be episodes later. I just don't know how to develop them because they're relatively short.
Okay.
There's a very, very, very large amount of suicides, which I don't think are generally show worthy. Mm-hmm. But just I was surprised just the huge amount of that came up. There were more shootings than I expected.
Really?
Yeah. A lot of, I mean, I had thought that I knew the majority of the murders that had happened in Kaukauna history. And there were more that I was not aware of. There's several just, I hate to say that, like, this is not the right way of saying it, but the classic murder of, like, husband kills his wife.
Okay.
It sounds terrible to say that, the classic murder, but, like, that's what a lot of murder is. It is hard to make a story out of that unless there's a whole lot more going on.
Right.
I mean, an abusive husband killing his wife, that's not really a story. That's unfortunately just common. Mm-hmm. But found more of those than I expected. So there were more murders than I had realized.
So now when you say there were more murders than you realize, are you talking like within your lifespan, or most of the murders that you discovered ones that happened outside of Gavin? Well, not your lifespan, but, you know, like mm-hmm. the life that you can remember. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, largely earlier.
Okay.
Earlier on.
Because I'm just...
But there was one... This doesn't make the book because this is the thing with the book has a firm cutoff of the 1980s. So I should be clear about that when I say that this is the history of the police department. It's the history of the police department up to the 1980s. There's a few things in there that happened after that, but as a general rule, I didn't want to do it for the same reason on this podcast that I don't normally do things newer than 50 years. Mm-hmm. I did not want to include officers who were still on the force because I didn't think that was a good idea to, mm-hmm. Nothing that I write isn't public. It's all public information. But I still was like, I don't know that I want to include them when they're still around. And also with the crimes, for the same reason as the podcast, there's some things that are kind of sensitive. Like on this podcast, we may someday talk about the Alex Schaefer murder.
Okay. We
might someday talk about that. But it's not in the book. Because to me, that still feels too recent. Even though that's like 40 years ago, mm-hmm. it still feels too recent.
Yeah, and I would feel like Alex's parents are gone.
I don't know.
But his siblings are by no means gone.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I don't know. But that one to me still is like, it's long enough ago that we could do it, but it still feels kind of raw yet.
It's a little, and that's going to, if we ever do that one's weird for me because like.
Oh, did you know some of the people?
I knew Alex.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Alex was lived in my neighborhood.
Oh, see,
man.
I didn't even know. I don't think I ever. Well, I might have met him because I think he was in Scouts, but
yeah,
but I didn't really know who he was.
Yeah, he lived a couple streets away from me. I mean, I didn't know him well, But obviously, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, he was quite a bit older than us. Probably 4 years older than us or something. Because I feel like he was 2 years older than my brother.
Maybe.
So, but yeah, totally knew him. Well, and then one of the guys that was the murderer, his little brother was somebody that at least I hung out with enough.
Yeah.
You know, so do you know who I'm talking? I don't want to say names.
Yeah. You don't have to say the names, but yeah. So it's like, that's the thing. Like, it's long enough ago now where that's all, it's gone. It's not, I mean, some people I'm sure have very strong emotions about it, but it's a lot of that's kind of gone. But yeah, still not quite where I feel comfortable. So that's not in the book. There's another case from the 80s that's not in the book. That's a young girl who, I'm not even going to say her name, a young girl who was assaulted and murdered. So like that's not in there, but yeah, just there's some nastiness. And I will say, and I've said this before, I've said this probably many times before, but doing this research like reaffirmed it for me. Was every time somebody says something like, this world is so nasty, it used to be such a good place, or something to that effect.
It's such a,
you know, I people will say different versions of that where they're like, what's wrong with kids today and whatever else. Like, seriously, like if you study history, you would not feel that way, and if you study crime history, you will definitely not feel that way. Because some of the crimes, the violent crimes you stumble across from 50, 100 years ago, oh my God, like they are just as brutal, if not worse, than anything in the last 10 years. So that is not a generational thing. Like, people have always been nasty.
And I think it's great that because I don't know that we've talked about it on this podcast, but this is something that Gavin pushes big time. Mm-hmm. Like, crime is not getting worse. People are not getting worse.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, it's getting better or staying the same. And I just find that interesting because I hear people say all the time how the world is just going to crap. And it's like, but it's really not.
No, and I've said this is a slightly different point, but I've said this all the time. If you check out the statistics, like the peak in this country for violent crime was the 1970s. More people were shot, more people were kidnapped, and it's gone down. Now, there's been a few years here and there where it spiked back up, but generally speaking, you're much safer now than you were 50 years ago.
And I just find that so funny, how so many people don't realize, and they're like, the weapons are getting, and kids are getting guns at a younger age, and it's like, but the stats just don't show that at all.
They don't.
Maybe they do get guns at an earlier age, but they're at least not killing anybody any faster than they used to.
Right. I mean, and there's various reasons for that, and I think the primary reason is the media. Whereas, you know, back in the day, unless it happened within 20 miles of you didn't hear about it. Right. And now every major murder in the country you get to hear about. So it sounds to you like, oh my God, there's a murder every 5 minutes, which, I mean, there is, but there always was. Yeah. You just didn't hear about all of them.
Exactly.
So there's that. Your other question was things that the police department handled really well.
Yeah.
And the first thing that comes to mind is I was really impressed with different drowning scenarios.
Okay.
So a constant theme in Kaukauna history, and probably other Fox Cities, you know, towns as well, but in Kaukauna history, a running theme was people were always drowning in the river and the canal. Mm-hmm. That seems to have really stopped. People don't seem to do that as much anymore.
That's because the mentality of everybody that lives around here is the river's so gross. Who's going to jump in it?
But it's weird because so there's numerous cases where somebody falls in the canal or the river, and it's usually not intentional. I mean, there's instances where people will jump in, again, because of the suicides and stuff, but generally it was not intentional. And the police were really good. There were multiple situations where they would jump in.
Oh, really?
And they would get the people out. And honestly, probably not super smart to do that, but it worked. Like they got people out. I just put a story in, added it in from the notes in the last week or two about a young girl. I think she was like 6 years old. And she was crossing the bridge. And this is far enough back. I mean, not even our Kaukauna listeners probably aren't going to remember this, but once upon a time, the Law Street Bridge opened up and boats went through.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is far enough back where like it opened up and this girl was walking across the bridge and apparently wasn't paying attention or didn't know what to do.
And it lifted?
And it lifted.
With her. Oh.
And it lifted. So she fell in. There's two different articles. One said she fell 30 feet. One said 50 feet. Whatever the case is, she fell high off the bridge into the water below. And the officer on duty at the time, he immediately like knew what was up, took off his shoes, jumped in the water, and was able to get her out. Mm-hmm. And like, I was super impressed with that because, like, yeah, okay, like I guess that's his job, but still, I feel like that's going a little bit beyond that. Like your first instinct is this water, which could very well kill me. I am going to jump in.
Yeah, but I think there's a lot of people that in this situation, you see a 6-year-old girl go into the water. There's a lot of people that are taking that chance.
I get it. I get it. But I just like, there's two scenarios here. You either have that impulse to jump in or you have the impulse to freeze up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love the fact that his impulse was, I'm going for it. And he got her out.
And you gotta admit that if you're going to hire a police officer, you want the police officer with that mentality. You don't want the police officer that freezes up.
Right. So yeah, there were multiple situations where people were in drowning situations. Also, once upon a time, like the quarries used to be used as swimming pools.
Okay.
This is a very long time ago, but before the city had a swimming pool, they would fill abandoned quarries up with the water and they would use them as swimming pools. So people would drown in there too because either they couldn't swim very well or they hit their head on a rock or something. So a lot of drowning situations, but like consistently, the police were really good, or even if they didn't succeed in getting them out right away, like they're there, 24 hours until they find that person. Like they're getting them out.
So now I have to ask the question.
Yeah.
This is your fault because you brought it up, but
okay.
And I'm probably gonna sound really stupid, but
I doubt it.
Is there that many quarries in Kaukauna?
Not anymore.
Like, what have they done with the ones they were using for swimming pools? Do they just close them in or fill them in or something?
They've been developed. I mean, yeah. Now, I'm going to probably sound dumb because as far as I know, there's really just the one now.
But the one that is still as far as I know. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, Murphy's.
Right.
And someone will probably be like, no, dude, there's like multiple courts. But as far as I know, there's just the one that's active. But there used to be multiple ones. And there even was, they used to do this thing where they would go into the river and they would like build temporary walls
and then
to wall off, an area and then dig under where the river would normally be flowing.
Interesting.
And I don't know like why that's how you would do quarrying, but that was how some of the quarries were done. So it was really easy to like let water in when you wanted to let the water in.
Okay. Interesting. Huh. But none of these exist. So basically,
I don't believe so.
So basically, like you would basically build a quarry like next to the river, and then just somehow have like an inlet valve that shot water into that quarry.
Yes, basically.
Okay, interesting. Huh. this would be an interesting little research to see where all these quarries were that people used to swim in.
If you want to see that, I have a report for you.
All right.
I've got like a 9-page write-up on the city's quarries. So we will not talk about that on the podcast. But if you
want, sounds like a lot of fun to me.
All right. But yeah, again, I think a lot of listeners know this, but like each month I put together a history topic, which I've been doing for almost 8 years now. And so I've got a lot of history topics, but they don't end up on this podcast unless they're in some way crime related, which most of them are not.
Right.
But yes, one of them was the history of the quarries. So
nice.
So I did do a project where I put together a quarry history.
Well, I do want to see this because I would love to read it and just see where these places were.
Yeah, if this was the Kaukauna History Podcast, I could put all kinds of crap on here, but it's not. It seems like it is sometimes, but it's not. Gavin
needs to make get together with the library and say we need to have a history podcast and bring it out.
I don't know about that, but I don't know. I don't know if you heard this, but a group in Green Bay launched a podcast.
No,
they live in the Astor neighborhood of Green Bay. I don't know if you're familiar.
I don't know what that is.
Okay, it's a really, really old neighborhood.
Okay,
and like this neighborhood group has started a podcast talking about the history of the different people who lived in the Astor neighborhood.
Oh, that is super cool.
It is. It's really cool. I don't know how long they can do that for, like what the length of that's going to be. But pretty much, yeah, like the Astor neighborhood was where everybody who was anybody in Green Bay history over the last 150 years, that's where they would have lived.
Okay. So at least they have a lot of material to work with.
They have a lot of material. But I've seen articles about that. I don't know how long they've been doing it, but there's been articles promoting it lately. And I was like, oh, that's really cool.
So like, do they just pick a person, each episode's a different person, and they just kind of tell that person's story, basically?
I didn't listen to it, so I can't say.
Okay.
But I mean, it seems like that. It seems like they focus on a person or a house or something. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So do you got anything else for this one, or?
Not really. The whole point, this wasn't even necessarily supposed to be a full-length episode. The intent was just to let people know that project's wrapping up. So if that is the kind of thing you're interested in, and if you listen to Fox Cities Murder and Mayhem, and half of our episodes are Kaukauna episodes, this might be something of interest to you. So that's coming out soon. I can't give you a firm date on that, but when it does, we won't do a full episode update, but I'll definitely mention it.
Yeah, definitely mention it. I also want to hear, I just want to hear how well this book sells, because I just remember, so for the listeners, Gavin has also written, like, we've talked about his, I think it's Arcadia books.
Yep.
That are just picture books, and he put captions in it, and he wrote one about Kaukauna. And I still remember to this day going to the book launch for it, and it was insane. It was in this coffee house in Kaukauna, and the freaking line was down the street with people buying.
It was crazy, book. And because you mentioned it, I got to give credit. I got to say thanks to your brother.
Why? What did my brother do?
Because unless it was you, but I'm pretty sure it was your brother. He once we knew that the books were going to run out.
Oh, that's right. Didn't he?
He started going down the line and actually taking orders.
Yeah. Okay, I do remember that.
So. So he was being awesome. He didn't have to do it, but he volunteered to go down and let people know the books were going to run out. And he took names and numbers so that I could get copies to people. He was awesome about that.
Man, how long did you spend driving around dropping off books after that?
I didn't.
Oh, did you just have like places they could pick them up?
Yeah, no. I said they had to pick them up at the coffee shop.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I did not hand deliver the copies, because there were I don't even know, but I know it was over 100. It could have been 120. I don't remember, but it was over 100 people who did not get a book that day.
Did not get a book. And do you remember how many books you came with?
I think 80.
Jesus. So that is one incredible book launch for a little book about a
By-
small town with
by far.
15, 20,000 people in
By
it.
far my best book launch ever. Yeah, without a doubt.
So
Yeah, and for that I have to thank the Kaukauna Times because I'm sure it was them.
it was their article probably that drove a huge.
They put a picture of me holding the book on the front page, and I'm sure that did it.
Yep.
Because if you don't live in Kaukauna, you don't read the Kaukauna Times because there's no reason to. But it actually carries some decent weight in town.
Still.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So then with that, we're going to wrap this episode up. We will update everybody when this book is officially out and you can get it. Hopefully we'll have an idea of where you can get it besides the library. But
yeah, that's actually, I'll say one more thing. That's why I'm actually kind of leaning towards the Amazon publishing as opposed to going through the place that we normally do.
Just because it'll be...
Yeah, I don't know what the profit ratio is on that. And I should clarify in this. I'm not actually taking the profit on this. The proceeds are going either to the police department or to the library. That will not be going to me personally. But that's the thing. I was thinking going through Amazon publishing might make it a lot easier to get copies to people.
Yeah, I would agree with you. So I mean, you always want to support local businesses and you don't want to support the big Goliaths. But at the same time,
I would love to support the local printer, but then I have to do all the sales by hand, right? Which I absolutely hate.
Yeah. You would much rather have this big, huge website that everybody knows and says, just go buy it there.
Yeah.
So, all right. With that, we're going to wrap this episode up. We want to thank everybody for their continued support, and we will be back next week now with the Menominee story. That didn't get pushed down.
No, it didn't get punted. No, it's ready to go. I maybe do a little edit to polish it up, but it's ready to go. It's good.
Okay. So we will be back in 2 weeks with that, and we want to thank everybody for their continued support. We'll see you on the next podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.